Medfield TV, community shows.
Hello, I'm Gil Rogers, a Medfield resident for 25 years, and we welcome you to this program, Let's Go Farming. The purpose is to introduce the show through a series of examples of what the benefits are to the community for local farming and local agriculture. We're doing this to make people more aware of the benefits. We're trying to communicate this to parents, to students, to stores, to restaurants, to government officials. And we're going to do this through a series of 3 or 4 programs. This is the introductory program. Today we have 2 guests, Laura Tangerini and Andrew Rodgers. Laura is co-owner with her husband, Charlie Tangerini, of Tangerini Farm, a community-supported agriculture, or CSA farm, located at 139 Spring Street in Millis. And it's located on a beautiful 67-acre parcel of land. You can see some of the pictures of that farm behind us. Laura has been farming since 1983. She has degrees in nutrition from University of Maine and an MBA from the University of New Hampshire. She's a frequent speaker on this topic on NPR and other programs. Next to her is Andrew. Andrew is my son, and he's the farm manager at the Clark Farm, located in Carlisle, Massachusetts, off of Concord Road and Route 228. This is an organically certified CSA on approximately 40 acres of land. Andrew has been farming since about 1999. He was an English major at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst and continued on with graduate studies in soil science, also at UMass. From 2003 to 2013, Andrew was farm manager of the very successful Green Meadows Farm in Hamilton, Massachusetts. To start the program off, I'd like to ask Laura and Andrew, how did they get involved with sustainable agriculture?
I actually started 30 years ago now. I started in Maine. I was actually working in the computer industry, and I just got fed up with being inside and all that went along with it, and had an opportunity to start growing, just on a small scale while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And one thing led to another, and 30 years later, here I am. So I am a self-taught farmer. I have no background. My parents didn't farm for a living, but it's just being outside, being in control of my destiny, being my own boss. All those things really appeal to me.
Andrew, how about you?
Yeah, my history is very similar. I was in high
parallel.
tech. I grew up in Newton, Mass, where there are no farms. And after going into high tech for a few years, I realized that was something I really wasn't interested in pursuing for a career. And for me, a huge motivation was understanding a lot of the environmental degradation that was going on in agriculture. Mm-hmm. And I saw organic agriculture as a potential way of remedying this situation that was happening.
Great. Now, in reading through the material about your respective farms, you both use the term sustainability and sustainable agriculture. And having myself spent time in different aspects of sustainability, I'm curious kind of how you interpret this very general term of sustainability. What does it mean to you?
It is a big term. and it has a lot of different facets to it. And I think the best way to describe it is by describe what it is not. It is not a monoculture type of farming existence. We are not growing one crop. We are very concerned as we look at our sustainability on our farm as, is it economically profitable for us, what we do, these choices that we're making? Is it environmentally sound, what we're doing? And when we talk about the economics and the environmental issues, we're talking about in the long term. We're not talking about today or this year or 2 years from now. We're talking about well into the future when this farm doesn't belong to us anymore, possibly. And the other thing that we look at is the sustainability are the social issues and the economic inequality that goes on. That's really important to us at our farm, to make sure that people are making a living wage, where people say to me, oh my gosh, you pay that much? And I said, yes, we want good people. We want them to stay with us. We want them to not, feel like they're always on their last nickel. So it's a bunch of different things to us. But first and foremost, it has to be economically profitable. And then you have to take into all these environmental conditions, the soil being probably the most important thing that we deal with. And then the social issues come with that. As you become more successful, you can really deal with some of the social issues.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, would you
very well said.
Add to that?
I think you nailed that one. I can't think of anything really to add to that. I think sustainability has a lot to do with its location and being part of a town. And it's the only thing I can add, which I think you actually covered a little bit, but keeping farms local and a farm sustaining a local community wherever that happens to be.
And I think the other part is the sustainability issue is, it's really on the farmer level. These are the decisions that the farmer makes about their life, right? So we may decide that, yes, this is economically profitable, this direction would be economically profitable, but do we want to change our lifestyle in order to do that? Does it make sense for our lifestyle? And that's why it's such a big subject. I mean, you could go on for a year taking a class in this and not cover all the facets of what it takes and all the scenarios that might go on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now what we'd like to do in this program is to try to articulate what are the benefits. What does local agriculture mean to Medfield and to Dover, Millis, and the surrounding towns? Why is it important? I think everybody is aware of it, and sensitive to it, but I'm not sure everybody really understands what the benefits are. And I've kind of classified those into 4 different categories. One you sort of touched on, and that is the community benefits. What's it mean to the people that live here, the employees, students, that type of thing. The second is the environmental, and again, you mentioned this, but I'd like to talk about that. And also, I think by environmental, I'm including also the health or the nutritional benefits of it. And then the third category is education. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, of how local farming fits into to the education system here, both the formal system and the informal system. And then finally, the social and cultural benefits, which are broader, but again, I think that they're very important because it's a style of life. It's kind of why people live out here. So maybe just going back to the community benefits, Andrew, maybe you could talk a little bit about what you see as the community benefits of local agriculture.
Yeah, and I think you covered a lot of the major topics, and we could probably talk for a half an hour about each one of those. The one that jumps out to me is the community benefits, and I think a farm, especially a diversified farm, that uses local employees, local kids are working there, and consumers from the town are supporting that farm. That's the huge benefit, where people have agriculture right next to them. And agriculture is a very interesting thing in that a lot of modern society, people are pretty much divorced from the natural world. And farming is sort of creates this nexus where the natural world and sort of human development meet. And so it's this great place where it all interacts. And kids who come and work on a farm, they get that engagement with nature. And people who come and they go to a farm and pick strawberries in the spring, they are enjoying nature, and they're having this very rich experience with the land in their local community.
Laura, do you want to comment on that?
The community part is probably, I know it's the reason why we were able to purchase our property from the trustees of the reservation, because when we put together our mission of how we wanted to develop this farm, it was about bringing people onto the farm on a regular basis. If people don't understand what they do, they can't support it. And so that's why it was so important for us to create venues on the farm for them to participate in, whether it was classes, whether it was U-Pick, whether it was a petting zoo for kids, whether it was hay rides in the fall, whatever it was, whether it was, employing young people, of which we employ like almost 35 people at our farm on a part-time basis, not on a full-time basis, excuse me. So the community aspect is so important, and I think that, this local food movement that we see, in part started because people were, and by reading books by Michael Poulin and who wrote in Defense of Food and things like that, and doing the documentaries that he did, I think that people felt duped, that they thought they knew where their food was coming from, and they felt that it was safe. But until they saw how he presented some of this to them, they thought, wow, I didn't know that's how my, my meat was produced. I didn't know my vegetables grown that way. I didn't know they synthesize foods in test tubes. So I think by people coming to the farm, being part of the farming community, they know that if they support their local farmer, they know what they're getting. And I think that's really important to them.
So it's a trust then. It's a connection
Absolutely.
and a trust.
Absolutely.
That parents or students, as you say, are much closer to understanding that whole process.
Right.
And so the uncertainty maybe, or the doubt now, I mean, is minimized.
Right, and they can and they do all the time. They come to us, I'm sure, and things that they hear on the news, they say, "Is this true? Tell me more about this. I don't understand that." And we can help them along to understand, what they're talking about, and where the food's coming through, and what is a GMO, and all those sort of things that they're really keyed in on right now.
What age levels do you employ? Or
I mean, another nice thing about farming is that farms need all ages. There's all sorts of different tasks that can be done. And I have young kids who come and volunteer from the age of 9.
These would be like middle school kids?
No,
or
even
high
younger, just coming and being part of the farm, as well as people who are older and retired, and they help in the spring in the greenhouse to do some seeding.
Yeah.
So farms could utilize all hands for sure.
Yeah.
And there's always endless work.
So, I mean, so you've had senior people that can't work out in the hot sun all day, harvesting crops, still can have a role.
At Clark Farm, we run a CSA where people pay up front in the winter, and then they get their vegetables through the summer. Yeah. And one of the options we offer people is to do a work for share. So if you don't have the money to pay up front, but you want to receive really fresh organic vegetables throughout the summer, you can come and work off the debt of the share. And it's great. And I have one woman who comes every week, and she's well into her 60s, and she knows at this point how to run my greenhouse herself. She comes in and does all the seeding. She's incredibly important to me in the farm.
Now, Laura, one thing that we had talked about is you have a lot of local students, and some of these students are looking to, get employment, or they're preparing their applications for college, and you found that this experience is actually quite beneficial for those things, for future employment, getting jobs, the ethics of it, as well as it looks good on a resume.
It does look good on a resume. even with my sons, they still put it on their resumes, and they're 26 and 27, and it's something that an employer just keys in on because it's different. When you go to say, I'm going to work on a farm, you're saying to yourself, I'm willing to work hard, right? Mm-hmm. At least if you make it to the resume, I mean, like you didn't get fired or whatever. But so I think that's important. I think many of my kids who have gone on to write their college applications wrote about their experiences on the farm, mm-hmm. and it just works. So it's a good hard job that people can take with them and know that they can do just about anything after they've done this. Because mm-hmm. it does test you.
It's good preparation, you're saying, for even if a student's not going to go on and be a farmer,
right?
If they're going into some other Wall Street or some other type of occupation, having that as a background teaches a good set of skills and discipline and reliability.
Learning to you just focus on a task. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're going down a 350-foot row of carrots, and you've got to weed them, you have to stay in the game. I mean, it's tedious work, and I mean, they don't have to do that so much anymore because we've mechanized a lot of what we do. Mm-hmm. But they need to know how to stay in the game. And when you're 16 and 17 years old, that's not easy. And it's the only time we always tell the kids, look back at what you did, don't look ahead. And that seems to help them get through it. And there's not many times in life people tell you to look behind. They tell you to look ahead. So
yeah. What about also that they're forming sort of bonds or relationships with other students or other kids that have similar kind of values to them, and the developing friendship. It's another community in a sense in which they're operating, and I suspect that those sort of relationships can go on, and carry forward into their life.
I would say that's another great benefit of a farm and its role in the community. At Clark Farm, we have 21 young farmers who come every year and work for us, and then there's workers from other countries as well as the whole age spectrum. And at the farm, because the farm is so energy intensive and needs so much help, you have this whole span of ages, and you have people interacting that are different ages. So if we have crew lunch and everyone's sitting down, you have the 11-year-old volunteer kid or the picker who just got strawberries talking to the 60-year-old woman who's helping in the greenhouse. Mm-hmm. And that's an incredibly rich experience. In terms of building community, these people would not have met because, unfortunately, in society, what we've done is we've segregated age groups into these neat little boxes where, typically a seventh grader won't interact with anyone except for their teacher, who might be older and who will be older, and then their age group. And it's funny because they'll have like sort of a weird language if you're talking to them. Those kids that are really insulated, they don't even know how to talk to someone who's older. Yeah. But kids who come to a farm work with kids who are older, younger, adults. It's amazing their communication skills and their appreciation for what everyone can bring to the table.
Excellent point. Let me shift to the second area then of benefits, and that was environmental and health and nutritional benefits. And somebody, I think you'd mentioned energy. Okay, the farm takes a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. So what would you say about the value of local agriculture from an energy environmental perspective?
Well, yeah, I mean, having local agriculture, obviously we're saving a lot of energy in terms of, a centralized food system where everything gets shipped, right? So there's a huge value there. And, just the energy that goes into running a farm like mine, a diversified farm, which is mechanized, but it's not using as much fuel, let's say, as some of the other larger farms where they're just commodity cropping and just growing one thing where they ship it all across the country. So I think there's a huge savings. And the energy that is being used, because it does require a lot of energy, is more sweat. Mm-hmm. It's human labor.
Mm-hmm. And from an energy perspective, would you say is sustainable? That you're using solar, wind, biofuels. I mean, you're recycling and trying to use a lot of the natural energy that's around versus just buying hydrocarbons. And burning.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, the way food grows is by using the energy from the sun, right? So that's free energy that we take advantage of. And then at Clark Farm, we have put up some, PVs on the building and at our farm stand. So we are utilizing some of the, newer technologies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah. So a lot of, other environmental thing is, first of all, fertilizers are petroleum sensitive also. So if you're doing a monoculture, whatever, and it's not organic, then you're using a lot of energy that way, or your intake is highly energy rich. We use solar at our farm. Anytime we plan for an expansion, we keep in mind that the impact it's going to cost us environmentally, how that's going to work. And we do a lot of, the other things we do, in the sustainability realm, a lot of it is this reduction of the inputs that go into it. And by reducing the inputs, you're also reducing the environmental your footprint. So, for example, compost. We make all our own compost. We have trucks that come in for the landscaper. It's all leaf mold that we do, and it comes in, put it out back, and it goes right back on our fields. And that's a source of a lot of our organic matter that we're enriching our soil with, and it puts out a great crop, and it's a continuous supply, from the landscapers. So we're trying to use those things that are within our environment, within our community, to get those recycled and back onto our fields.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point, just about the compost. We do the same, and we take in just tons and truckloads of, landscapers' leaves and stuff like that. Now, that gets composted, which has lots of benefits for fertility, but there's also a huge reduction in some of the, climate-changing gases, because composting, the way we do it, and I assume the way you're doing it, is an aerobic method.
Right.
Versus if you're just throwing it in a landfill, you're going to produce tons of methane out of that.
Right,
and
contributing to greenhouse.
Contributing,
gases.
which is just horrible, and it's a waste of nutrients and fertility. That's what the plants need.
Right.
So not only are we using probably less energy than what you would find from faraway agriculture, there's reusing some of the local waste into fertilizer and reducing some of the horrible greenhouse gases.
Now, I guess also you're much more under control in terms of herbicides, insecticides, fertilizers, and then other forms of agriculture, right? There's much more of a constraint on that. Do you want to comment basically on kind of what do you think the environmental benefits of those are?
Well, all of our crops are grown using organic methods, with the exception of sweet corn. And I think, can you just repeat the question again? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to bring
the
up...
pesticide thing, I'm sorry.
Right.
So the pesticide thing, everything's organic that we do. Right. So we do have organic pesticides that are available to us to use. They're approved and for that. It's a very important part of what we do environmentally. We want to make sure that those beneficial insects that we have there, the beneficial organisms that we have in the soil, are there working for us all the time. And so, not having to use something that's very not so beneficial, say to honeybees or whatever, is something that we think about all the time. And we're very cognizant of when we do use the organic pesticides, the time of day that we use them in is very important also. So, we're not going to do it in the middle of the day when any bugs are out. It's usually going to be, in the evening hours. A lot of them degrade with the sun, so we want to make sure that they're actually, when we do put them on, that they have that good 10 or 12 hours of nighttime really to work for us.
I think we've touched on this, but I'd like to just just go back to these other two areas of benefits. One was the educational benefits, right? That is to say, how does local farming contribute to the educational system? And maybe you could just give a comment on how you think it does.
Sure. Well, we have an educator who works for us at Clark Farm, that engages the local school, which is less than 1,000 feet, by the way, from our farm. And they, so we have classes that come all the time. Next week we have a hand shearer. This guy is very old school, coming and shearing our sheep.
Wow. And
we have 2 classes. The 5th grade and the 2nd grade are coming down to watch that. Mm-hmm. So this is a great experience. Kids are seeing how fiber is produced firsthand, and using a method has been used for thousands of years, basically. There's the formal education programs we run. There's the informal programs that we run with the kids who come and work, and as well as those members in my CSA who are part of the farm. A lot of this relationship that I have with them is explaining what happens in our growing system. And so for those families that invest in the farm, they are getting educated. I'm sure lots of them already know a lot about farming, but they're learning more about how food is grown, and they have a much richer understanding of how food is produced.
Let me ask kind of one sort of final question. One of the things we're trying to do is to get more involvement in the local community with local agriculture. And you could see using the school system, the cafeterias, the science programs. You could see using local restaurants or grocery stores. Laura, what's the challenge in doing that?
The biggest challenge that I see is just educating those people who are in the restaurants, who are in the grocery stores, to know what's coming up when. In terms of delivering that, getting the product to them, most of them are this mindset that they just want to shop at one place. So they want one truck to pull in, they want everything that they could pot, from the lemons to the carrots, that's what they want on that truck. So they don't have to deal with another delivery. Yeah. So our biggest challenge in our area is the aggregation of produce. Mm-hmm. And we have been lucky to work with a company called Let Us Be Local. She aggregates for the Worcester area.
Let Us Be Local.
Let Us Be Local. She does a fabulous job. And we are able to, she comes to the farm once a week. She picks up the orders from all the restaurants in her area that she delivers to. She comes to the farm once a week. She picks up all her orders and she goes. It's a great service to us. And it's a great service to the restaurant. But if we just go to the restaurants one at a time, they'll say, well, what do you have? And we'll say, well, we have carrots, beets, potatoes, salad mix. And they're like, they might not have beets on the menu. They might want a certain kind of potato. It just makes it more difficult. So now it's not really worth it for us to go there, or for them to have us go there. And that's been the biggest challenge. I know people have been in this for years, and it's been a challenge all along.
Just sort of a final comment. Would you sort of make any kind of major point or message that you would like to get out to our community here about local farming?
Yeah, kind of piggybacks on what Laura was just talking about with the challenges of local food production. And I think we should all remember that we are having sort of a revitalization of local farming, and it's been consumer driven. It hasn't been producer driven. So people want local, healthy food. People are aware of the effects of pesticides. People are concerned about GMOs. People are concerned about how animals are raised. So this is driven by the consumer. So while there is a challenge of helping restaurants or grocery stores sort of meet the demand on the back door, on the loading dock of getting produce, it's all about people in Medfield, people in Carlisle wanting and saying they want that local food. And I think we're making huge progress, but there is a long way to go before you're in a town where almost everyone belongs to a CSA or everyone identifies with a farm stand. In every restaurant you go to, you find locally produced food. And I think we're going to get there, but it's going to take people in Medfield saying, I want this.
Now, and it's not always saying that I want this. It's them willing to make some of the concessions that they need to make in their life to make this happen. One of the biggest drawbacks I see for people in doing this is, and this goes back to the public school system, we need to reintroduce home economics into our school system. People need to know how to cook their own food. And if they don't know how to cook it, they're not going to buy the local stuff. And it's one of the biggest travesties of the public school system is, I know they took it out because of budget cuts and whatever, but I think with the obesity epidemic and the eating of processed foods and all diabetes, all that sort of stuff, that's all driven by the fact that we don't even know how to cook for ourselves. I bet you almost half the population doesn't know how to cook for themselves properly.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Laura and Andrew. I think this has been a great introduction. And what we're going to do in the next program after the growing season gets going is take some time to actually visit the two farms, the Tangerini and Clark farm, and actually talk to some of the people working in the fields, the volunteers, talk to some of the customers, to get a direct understanding of that. So we look forward to doing that probably in the summer when things are in full growth.
Awesome.
And I'd like to also thank Aditi Tata for suggesting this program, and Medfield TV for putting it on and helping us in organizing it and filming the program and editing into a very good program. So thank you very much.
Preceding was a production of Medfield TV, Community Shows.